All right, welcome to Boots in Transition. This is a new format we're trying today. We're trying a Facebook Live before we go to the podcast. And I want to welcome my guest, my good friend, Brendan Tarpey. Me and Tarp started together in Afghanistan. Now he's getting his degree in nursing, and we're going to talk today about mental health and his journey. Okay, so Brendan, so tell me about let's start off with when you got out and you started realizing you're having issues. Is that good jump off?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it would. I kind of identified issues that I was having while I was still in. So, I mean, from that standpoint, that was definitely there. But you had a shared experience with a lot of guys, and you were in a unit, so it was good and bad. Somewhat therapeutic, but
Right.
also, we were, as typically anybody in a unit knows, you're evil to each other too.
Yeah,
Um,
like brothers.
right, absolutely. And I love those guys to death, but when you got stuff going on in the background, you don't really know what it is, and you're trying to figure it out yourself. No one's really sharing that. Dude, I haven't slept in 3 days, and you know, I don't,
I
I
didn't
don't,
start
I don't
realizing
know why.
I
Yeah,
didn't realize I was having issues, so I wasn't there. And
mhm,
I think that's when I think both of us, because for anyone who's watching, me and Tarps were in Afghanistan, co-located for a bit of it, and then we were in command together.
mhm.
And I've been thinking a lot about you lately because I was prepping for this interview. I've been reading that Finding Your Tribe book by, I think, Younger, same guy who wrote Restrepo. And
Okay.
some of the things they talk about, like the anger that comes up. And I remember both of us we both got angry a lot. And then we were both experiencing, probably without diagnosing each other, a lot of the same stuff. So every time I talk to you and you tell me about your issues, which I want to go into, I went through the same thing, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I guess I started too early. So when you tell your story, man, now don't let me dictate.
Well, I mean, I think your original question was, when did you realize you were having, issues? And
Hmm.
I mean, if we talk about timeline, I think I got back from Iraq in 2005. And you go to redeploy, you have your chaplain briefing. The guys who are married go to their married thing. Hey, it might be weird, and things might come up. But the single guys, what were we were doing? We were doing all the things that we wanted to do that we didn't get to do for a year.
Hmm.
And that obviously is part distraction and part process. But I think, to answer your question directly, getting out and ETSing, I think I had some hubris there. I didn't think it was going to be as drastic a change as it was. You follow me? So
Hmm.
when I got out, it was 2011. Surge was over pretty much in both places, but we were still fighting pretty heavy in both areas. You know, and it was on the news, and there were reminders there. But I threw myself into a high stress job, and told myself that it was all gonna work out, because I was adapted to be able to do anything.
Right.
So getting into a business environment didn't scare me, and I think I took it and I ran with it, because I said I can do anything. Based on my experience, it's going to be fine. I'll figure it out. Um, and we all know, in the military, I don't care what branch you're in, there's a large amount of OJT, because you're actually applying some of the knowledge that you've trained under, and you're applying it to other situations, whether it be managerial, if you're a leader for the first time, I don't care if you're a fire team leader to, a first lieutenant who's running an XO, in that junior leader situation, you're learning how to lead as much as you are leading. And so I just felt like I was adapted for it, and I had a wake up call, and that was the civilian world was a way different than I had anticipated. And I would liken it that I started knowing I had problems when, life would throw me curveballs and I would have stress. And then that stress would start to manifest into certain, I don't know, you want to call them adaptations. It took me a good 10 months to realize that I still didn't feel like I was Brendan in his own skin.
What do you mean by that?
So by that, I meant, why am I white knuckling when all my wife is asking me to do is a couple chores, and I'm standing there with my, with my forks and knife at the dinner table, like ready to, punch through the kitchen table. And I don't even know why. I'd go, and I was my job was a salesman, but I was specifically in medical device. So I was in operating rooms a lot. So, little levels of stress, but you get a surgeon who tells you, I don't want your stuff, and he throws it across the room, and I want to go walk outside and walk through traffic because I'm so pissed off that I could chew nails. And I didn't really know why, because it wasn't, you get told no 1,000 times in sales. It's part of the job. Did I internalize it a little too much? Yeah, that might be my personal thing, but it was the reaction to the stress that I wasn't able to do. And then so what really reared its ugly head was because I was getting stressed, I was not dealing with maybe the stressors the right way. Yeah, I'd work out. Yeah, I'd do some things that you would always just do because, you're trying to be disciplined in anything you're doing. So you get up before work, you go run, you get to work, you do your thing. And, those things were happening, but I didn't realize that the night disturbances were happening as frequent as they were. And then I came into a period of shortly after a job issue happened, and I was literally just coming out of training, and our company got fired from our contract. And so now I got offered basically my boss's job to run this territory. And I said, great, I jumped at the chance. But the problem being, I wasn't ready for the amount of stress that would be technically running your own business.
You're bumping up what you've got as as your workload, and you're still dealing with stuff you hadn't dealt with in the past.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, to a certain level, I didn't find the work to be, and I think we talked about this at length, I didn't find the work to be as stimulating or as purposeful. So I lost my direction, and I'll tell you, I got depressed on top of the fact that I wasn't sleeping. So there was a period of about 3 weeks that this was the summer of 2012, where I didn't sleep more than maybe 2 hours a night, if at all, some nights. And it started to mess with my day. It started to mess with my head. And, I was having a recurring nightmare, and I started to finally come to the forefront of my consciousness to where I remember what it looked like. And, it kept waking me up, and it was driving me pretty much batty. So you have a couple things going on there, and we've kind of gone into one question, but a couple different things. And I think, I didn't find the work stimulating or as purposeful as I did in my military career. I wasn't in charge, so it was a solo gig. So right. I kind of felt isolated, and then further isolated. And then there were the nightmare and the combat stress related stuff, but also the depressive stuff. And I think a lot of guys will tell you, life lost its luster. And for me, it manifested it in a way that, I guess was kind of insidious. I think I have it in my family and just kind of never went and got diagnosed with it. But then I started to do the thing that I think a lot of us do, because I'm a self-starter and I am proactive, and some of that also doesn't really aid us in the way we think it does. And my personal thing, I turned to booze and partied too much. And people were partying and I was having, maybe they were having 4 drinks on a Thursday night, and I was having 8 to 12 because I wanted to go to bed. Mm-hmm. That was kind of some of the stuff that I started to do to numb the stuff that was going on. And I didn't tell anybody about this. I think my wife had inklings. We were married at the time, but we were new, relatively, 4 years married at this point, and new to being civilian. And she had a job change. We just moved, so all of those major stressors that you have, I don't think I anticipated in the right way. And that's okay. I look at that now as part of my journey, but I think what it did was it heightened all the situations. And then there was a night where I let it get out of hand. And I could get, I have alcoholics in my family. They talk about a bottom. I got to a point where, this went on for about 3 months. And I think, I didn't want to be around anymore because I wasn't a good husband and I wasn't a good friend, and I just wasn't a good person at that point. At least that's what I thought up here. Regardless of my service, I was like, I don't understand why I'm like this. And, I started looking for an out or a release to the pain, and that led me down a dark, dark place. And I can specifically point on a few occasions where, I got really so wasted that I was like, if I just walked into traffic, I could solve a lot of problems here. I don't think I wanted to die. I think I just wanted a stop to the pain.
Yeah.
And a stop to the craziness and the chaos that I was causing, in my family. So, I think I just talked for a good 10 minutes and I didn't mean to, but,
no, it's exactly correct. I went through something similar. I've been kind of open with it now.
Mm-hmm.
I used to not talk. I went through a real bad period.
This is seltzer, by the way, in case anybody thinks I'm taking a swig of something.
I'm bringing it up. I went through a real bad period a few years ago. I hit a bottom where I felt like I was the problem in the equation. Part of it we've looked at, being gone and coming back and not adjusting, and then, trying to find, putting Band-Aids on, be it, just working out all the time, because there's and I'm going to say it's a bullshit concept that if you just go out for a run, that depression goes away, which is the biggest lie you can tell people, because then I was working out 4 or 5 times a day, still feeling awful, thinking, oh, then maybe I'm that bad, maybe if a run solves everything and I'm doing 4 hours and I'm still looking at, traffic, like you're saying, then how bad am I? And It took a long time, especially I think when you're an alpha male, to start to realize whether you ask for help or, you got to start asking the right questions, and I didn't communicate well with my family. So then it just made it worse. It just exacerbated the problem. And it took me a long time. I think, to be honest with you, I still struggle with it. If I drink, I go through like 3 days of depression over how garbage am I that I was drinking, and alcohol is a depressant. So I I don't have more than one or two drinks now, or else I feel awful. So
Yeah.
a lot of people that I talk to have that exact same thing, but yet we all act like we're going through it alone. Like we
Yeah.
don't.
I mean, the sharedness of the experience becomes a, I don't know. It's funny because I think a lot of us probably could identify with all of the things. I mean, I'm sure there's people who are still, I liken it to what it was. I was sick. I was very sick. Um, and I don't. Part of it, I was supposed to be this together guy who, had a successful career in the military, got out, was, in Southern California selling to these crazy surgeons, and I was putting on a facade every day, and I didn't feel it on the inside.
Well, I think in the military we're trained to do that, right? I
Right.
mean, I think a lot of the training I had about what a leader is supposed to look like and how a leader is supposed to behave actually set me back. You
Yeah.
know, um, you got this good PT score. You got, you put your feelings on the inside,
Mm,
and if you then, especially if you have a clearance, you don't want to go too far and talking to anybody because then you can lose your clearance.
sure.
So you get used to covering it up until you have a catastrophic event.
Yeah.
And I had a catastrophic event a couple times, both
Mm.
myself, my family. I mean, it was getting bad. And so did you hit that rock bottom? What was your event that changed your thinking from I'm so awful to how do I fix it? Like what happened?
Um, Specifically, it was a time where I had gone consecutively. Work was kind of falling apart around my ears. You know, and the thing is like, we're harder on ourselves, I think, as vets or military, people, because we got to handle our business and then we got to be there for a family. And, it's about being, like you said, alpha male, provider, everything to everyone, to your troopies, to your spouse, to your kids. But it stops us from doing what, a little bit of self-management in saying, I'm having trouble with something that I don't know what the hell it is, and I don't know why it's happening. So, for me, it was the reoccurring nightmare. I would see people that I knew, people that I had seen wounded, and people that I, had seen um, die in my Bradley scope. So the Brad has a very specific red night scope on its thermal scope. You can go white hot or black hot, and I would see that in my dream. And it would literally be like I would shake my head and I couldn't lose it. So
Mm-hmm.
that would wake me up in a cold sweat. I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep. I would be, losing my mind in terms of like, why am I such a freaking mental patient? But that occurred for about a week straight. And I lost a couple accounts at work and was really stressed out about it because, I didn't know how. I was 100% commission, so I didn't know how I was going to make, my monthly quota that month, and it was scary. And all of that piled up to, we went out with a good veteran buddy of mine, and went out for the day drinking down in San Diego at, horse racing and everything like that. So basically we started early on the train down and kept going. And you pour someone like myself who's going through something like that, and then, I'm just slugging them back. And, very much of this, and I don't like to lose that in it, very much of this is my family history and my own coping mechanisms that aren't good to begin with. But I got into a big fight obviously, because I was being a complete complete jerk and everything during the day, and it continued. And we got home, and my wife kind of called me on some stuff, and I blew my top, and I basically said, from what I can remember, and Amy has, an idea of this, but I pulled off the mask, and we talked about that, wearing that facade, and I showed her what people see when a soldier's in combat and is going to do that. And I was not a pretty person, and when I say the mask, it came off, and I said, what I was for, and I think I probably at the top of my lungs, and not something I'm very proud of. So it's hard to talk about, but I pulled off the mask and I showed her what it looked like, 2004 driving down Route Predators when we got in contact, and, it was, them or us, and things like that. And, that was a place that I hadn't gone to in a very long time. And, we got into a fight. I think I scared her a lot. I scared myself. Never got physical, never got violent, but
it's raw, man. It's a raw thing.
Oh, it's terrible. And I think about it today, and that memory, how difficult it was. But I was a mess. I was a mess inside. For me, a lot of it was too. I didn't. I was a kid from New Jersey. I don't think I ever picked up a rifle till I was a cadet. In training. And I'm going to say,
no, right.
I used my weapon. I know what it feels like. And, I was proficient at it, but it messed with me because, I was raised Catholic, and, killing was wrong, and all the shame that comes into it is part of this whole journey. So I guess the bottom line is I woke up that next morning after sleeping on the couch. I had expelled myself from the apartment and went down to a buddy's house, or was going to, and she coaxed me back in. And now I'm sober up, and now all the pain and the hate and the stuff is kind of gone, and now I'm just this. And I remember collapsing on the floor of our apartment and just saying, I just want to come home. Excuse me. Why can't I just come home? And I met up here.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So
you want to be you. You don't even know what you is anymore. You get the idea. I want to feel like I used to feel, but you don't. That it doesn't fit anymore. So and I. So you're out. So you don't have that support network. How'd you do it? How did you change? How'd you come
I didn't
back?
do it. I didn't do it right the first time. I'll give you that much. This is a series of fits and starts, but I'd gotten to a point where I knew two things were going to happen. I was going to wind up divorced, which scared me more than I think than the other alternative. I had a background in it. My old man was not a well man, and an alcoholic. So, I think therapy was an option, right out of the gate. I needed to sober up, which I did, or at least stopped using it as a crutch.
Right.
And that was an important part of it. really, my story goes, I had some bad feelings and some fits and starts. Like I said, I wound up losing my job, which, in the long run was a blessing. And I would say I tried a therapist who was a civilian therapist, and they said I was depressed, which I probably was, but they put me on medication, and the medication was something that also decreased male libido and caused that kind of stuff, which wasn't going to work for me, because part of that whole feeling, the shame of it all, and the depression, and the fact that I couldn't handle it anymore was definitely shaming and damning for me.
It is very hard to. I had similar side effects, and I had to get off my medication.
Yeah.
Find another way, because there's when it attacks your libido, it attacks your motivation. The way I described it to people when I was on medication is like I was wrapped in plastic. I could see the world around me. I had an idea of what was going on, but I just never felt like I could touch it. And that actually made me feel more isolated, because even though I didn't feel sad, I never felt happy. I didn't get turned on. I didn't get motivated in the gym. So, I mean, on the side of the medication took away the pitfalls, which only to a certain point, because then it's like, oh, well, now I'm rationally thinking about ending myself versus emotionally thinking about it. And it makes sense. It doesn't help.
Right.
But if, I came to the decision that if I could not experience the joys, then there was no point, right?
Right.
If I can't have that, like I couldn't watch a movie and laugh, just like a belly laugh, I couldn't find that in me. So I had to get off the medication and find my own way, because of that, exactly what you're describing, is that there's a shame and there's a feeling of not measuring up, which only reinforces that downward spiral.
Yeah. Well, I think, the thing that I really identify with what you said was feeling the edge being off of everything. Like life just was dull, not dull, but dulled, even when I was just wrapped in this coat of anger and, just from my MO, I turned it in on me, that it was my problem and it was me. I know there are a lot of other folks that are able to maybe externalize that and get angry at others and go after others. I'm my own favorite target. So, that was a point where I realized, like, if I'm enemy number one in this situation, then I'm in big trouble. I went, I'm at the civilians and they're trying to get me to talk about, trauma that, happened when I was 12, and, that I'm still locked in this. And, that for me was not going to work. So I had this moment of, a little bit of, and I don't know, can we swear on here?
Yeah.
I had a little bit of
on iTunes, we're allowed.
I had a little bit of a fuck it moment, and I said, fuck this. I'm going to do what I know how to do. I'm going to, and mentally I literally thought of myself as, strapping my rucksack back on, pulling the fucking cords tight and grabbing my shit and moving out. And, I pulled myself out of that and, made the concerted effort that I was going to fix this on my own. And for a good little while, I got more positive. I did things that were right, and started feeling better. And then it all fell apart.
So that happened.
And I was a mess again. And And I've now, not only now was I a mess, I felt pretty defeated.
Yeah.
And options started to take a higher precedence than they did. And that was when I finally said, I got to get to somewhere where they understand this. And I by no means ever thought at this point, I've lost my job. I had transferred for that job out to Arizona, where I am now. I lost my job. I got a new job, and I was hiding it again, and things were not going well in that job. And I wanted, for me, the big thing was I need a purpose in life, and I think we talked about this too. Is like you're designed, and they go to the kids that maybe are true believers, maybe the kids that will do anything to prove, got a chip on their shoulder and need to prove themselves in the military. And I think that's what makes you a good soldier, a good Marine, good airman, good sailor, whatever, is the fact that you have that built into you. But I guess where I'm going with this is that, I tried to fix it on my own. I realized that I couldn't, and I asked for help. And my wife was able to kind of be there a little bit. I asked some other people to talk with me, other veterans that understood it, and a few of them will know my story in detail, that I reached out and was a mess, and I actually had a guy who was out here still he was on a temporary TDY, and he saw me, getting my stuff together for work, getting ready to go, to my first hospital of the day. And he just said, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I just looked over at him. He's sitting in my kitchen, and I'm literally like, got my bag on my shoulder. I'm about to walk out the door, and I was like, "Arr!" And he goes, I'm getting ready for work. He's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't want to fucking do this anymore." And he's like, "What do you think you want to do?" And I said, "I think I want to, do something in healthcare and medicine." And he was like, "Well, fucking do it then." And it was literally like, I know people are probably going, "What's the big deal?" But for me, another veteran saying that to me, who thinks the way I think.
That is a big deal, because he's recognizing the same thing you're probably asking yourself every morning.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing? But you're self-critical. You're saying, I'm doing my job. I'm rucking up,
Yeah.
So when someone else can see it, and it's like, it's a recognition, like, oh, I have a lot going on in my head, but it's not all in my head. Someone else sees this too.
Yeah.
And then now I know your story. So you had a family you're providing for,
Mm-hmm.
and you make the possibly life-changing, life-saving decision that you need to change asthma.
Yep. Huge change too.
How was that conversation with your wife?
Not done the right way.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of, this is happening. This is what I'm going to do. I have a plan, and I'm seeing it through.
You just let her know what you were doing.
You don't, like this is going to happen. And I'm going to tell you, she challenged me on it like any good spouse should.
Dude, I love Amy. She's a saint, but
yeah.
I don't think she's going to get pushed around either.
No, she didn't. She's like, "I just need you to have a plan." And I said, "This is the plan. This is what's happening. I'm quitting my job 6 months in, and I'm going back to school.
Okay.
And, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get a job and do something else, So the Irish guy in me decided he was going to bartend for a little bit till he figured it out.
There you go. Yeah, it seems It seems like a bad recipe.
Let's just say veterans everywhere, unless you have a background in the hospitality industry, you are no longer hospitable. You know, and you know, if that's your true passion, you're fine. You just have a different cant to the way you deliver information, and that didn't work out very well. So I got my EMT license. I got into the VA, and I did it just like anybody else would. I went into my primary care down at Phoenix Hospital, the place where, you know, unfortunately, very sick folks are losing their battles and ending their lives in the fucking parking lot. But you know, the administrative issues that were there at the time, and this was just after the scandal and the shakeups, you know, do not detract from the care and the people who actually give a shit. And so I got lucky. I found somebody who believed me, and you know, I sat in a mental health clinic lobby for 6 hours as a walk-in.
Wow.
You know, feeling.
So you go into mental health, you're having issues,
Right.
and it took you 6 hours to get seen.
Yep.
Wow.
I've never
been to the VA except my testing, so I've heard the stories. In fact, I've got my cousin's been dealing with the VA now, and look, I'll be the first to say, you know, I don't think it's the employees at the VA's fault, you know, but the fact of the matter is, a person in distress shouldn't wait. That's 6 hours to talk yourself out of getting help. That's 6 hours to, you know, throw your hands up and say, you know, I mean, if I was there to get something,
the reaction that most anybody would have, especially somebody who has no fucking patience for bullshit anymore, is fuck this. I'll do it myself. Or, you know, the results that we have, you know, and I've heard horror stories. I've had other really close vet friends that, you know, went as far as, you know, and I'm not going to tell their story, but, you know, went as far as you could go and still didn't get, you know, the help that they needed from the VA and wound up having to go civilian. I did go civilian while I was in Phoenix. And, you know, the true therapy that helped me was the same one that I worked with the VA. So rewind a little bit before the 6 hour sit. And the doctor that I got was very kind, and he was good. And he, you know, I think the things that were causing me issues was the fact that I didn't know how to put a name on it. And, you know, I had a doctor sit me down and say, you have chronic to severe PTSD, and, you know, you probably got some depression sprinkled in there. And, you know, this is a real issue, you know, in that I went to another, you know, therapist who started me on a therapy that I think really started the night disturbances, those dreams that I were having, to therapeutically get rid of them. They gave me drugs. They gave me trazodone for sleep and depression, and then they gave me Lamictal, which was something that was to kind of correct the mental fog and the you know, some of the other things that were going on in my head. And I used them for a time, and I think they were necessary at the time. But the thing that really helped me was the fact that I went and found a VA doctor that I trusted and that I could talk to, and that he walked me through the same therapy that I was getting with the civilian doctor, but with a stance of, you know, knowing more about what we specifically go through in terms of being exposed to major trauma and violence and all of that things. So, you know, I like you, I'm a pretty avid reader. I started reading anything I could get my hands on about my issues. And I got rated, which was, you know, a big deal too, because I was one of those vets that a lot of guys, I think, continue to do, which is there's guys way sicker than me. My issues aren't that bad. I'm holding down a day job. I'm providing for my family. But, the true thing is, brothers and sisters, is you do not have to go through this alone, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel every fucking time. Take it from someone who tried to do it himself. I think the unsuccessful attempts could have been at the cost of my family and the cost of my life. And that's a scary fucking thing to think about now that I'm a little bit well. But those are things that I went through. So the long story short is I got into the right therapy. And that's the thing that people don't understand about mental health. They're going to throw you on a bunch of drugs, and what they're doing is they're trying to mess with the chemistries.
Yeah.
So, you respond to this, but it also makes your libido go through the floor. So we need to fix that. Okay. So we're going to get you back to, something a little bit less drastic, and maybe it'll work for you. But for me, and you talked about this with me, for me, it was the talk therapy and the specific therapy I'm talking about is called EDMR, or something along those lines. I should look it up again. Sorry for not, but basically what they do is they put earphones on and they hand you two paddles, and the paddles vibrate and the earphones click, and you relive a memory, for me, a specific memory. And what it does is it almost simulates REM sleep. And it's really interesting. I would say research it yourself if you're interested. But why it worked for me was and this is how my civilian therapist put it. You have a box full of memories in your brain, and they start at A and they go through Z. And every time your subconscious gets a new memory, it files it in the appropriate file folder. And if you mentally think about this, and she had me close my eyes and just walk me through it, but if you mentally think about this, the trauma your combat trauma, your car accident, your shooting, whatever, the thing that traumatized you may happen at J, right? So you start your night at sleep, and your body goes, and your subconscious goes through A and files all your memories away, and then it gets to J, and the trauma happens all over again to you subconsciously, and it wakes you up because it triggers your sympathetic response, the thing that says, I don't feel right about this guy, and I'm going to pull a bead on him, and we might be going. All of that spidey sense that goes on in combat happens right there to you at that night. That's what wakes you up. And for some guys, there's been studies that Vietnam veterans have done this for freaking years. And then they went and did this therapy where it simulates REM sleep, and your subconscious gets to process it. It doesn't go away, but it processes it. And it may become less acute, where it's not waking you up anymore and triggering your fight or flight response.
Right.
And for me, that's what happened. I need to go back to therapy because I got some other things I got to work out. And that's what worked for me. So it was a combination of, finding a purpose, talking to other vets who understood me, and understood what I was going through. And then, getting the meds right. And then, and that's a process, and it's a strong one. And, VA doesn't do it perfectly. But the therapy thing, the talk therapy, I'm off meds today. I'm happy to say, I have a purpose again. And I know that's where I want to be and where I want my life to be. And, I'm just trying every day to wake up and be better. And, I fail just like anybody at being a great husband, a great dad, like daily. And I learn from those lessons. But the thing that they do not cause anymore is, I guess they don't cause the acute level of pain and re-traumatizing myself that they used to. So that's a little bit of it. There's a lot of things there.
So now your wife knows about what you're going through, and she's aware of it. You've got, obviously, between then and now, you bridged that piece where at least you're on the same page. I mean, so that's a break a lot of people never get to.
Right.
The fact that it led the way for you guys to understand what the issue is, and the issue isn't your marriage. The issue is the other stuff that's affecting the marriage. But before, it's you put it all together. It's all tied into a knot. So, like you said earlier, that you feel like you're failing at everything. I'm sure on the spouse's side, there's a similar issue of helplessness and what's going on. So do you feel like you guys are synchronized now, as far as at least what's going on? Or have you turned that corner?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain point, of course, are there things that we both, personally need to work on, in terms of it? Yeah, I mean, I think we had an argument the other night over, something really inane. But I woke up, I was grouchy. I'd been stressed out because of my nursing program and my nursing thing. But I had to, I had the opportunity to hear from another veteran through part of the nursing program. They were talking about people with disabilities and how we care for them in the medical system. And he was a vet who had, weirdly enough, a lower rating than I did, if that means anything to anybody. And he talked about this, thing where, anniversaries are a big deal. And anniversaries of combat, losing friends, anniversaries of, whatever. But basically the anniversary of the trauma. And for many of us, myself included, there are very many troubling things that, happened in a year or two, and in my case, 2 combat tours. In others, it's probably, pick which year, 6,
Right.
Year 6 out of 6 or year 4 out of 6, but it doesn't matter. It's an event that, it's coming up, or you don't, your subconscious knows it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to do this again. You start to just hulk it, and you don't, again, you don't understand why. And I woke up, I was being a gigantic gaping jerk, and it was bad. And I said something critical about, something stupid, and I got lit up for it. And then we got into a fight, and I felt sick about it all damn day because I knew maybe at heart I was at wrong. But she's like, it was uncalled for. What the hell? She forced the issue, and we had a conversation about it. Now, in the past, when she had forced the issue, I was out the door because I didn't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, instead of doing the right thing, out the door meant under the bottle, because I was trying to numb all of that. And now it's a thing where I had to identify what the hell I was being an asshole for. And I had to come up with, I had to kind of talk to myself and say, what's wrong with you?
I've got my own theory, just it's a working theory. I've been, kind of come to the conclusion lately that it's never going to go away. Right. I will keep it in the box. I will keep it, I'll be walking around perfectly fine. And then suddenly, boom, I feel like I'm back in it. Like the depression again. And I mean, the only what helps is now I recognize it for what it is.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, it's like that boogeyman. Like I know it's the monster over my shoulder. I don't start ascribing it to everything that it's not. I know that it's my own internal issues. It's not my marriage. It's not my career. It's back again. And some days I'll go like 3 or 4 days where God, I'm on the floor. And I came to that realization that this is gonna be an issue for the rest of my life.
Mm.
It's just how much I let it affect me. Like how once I start overgeneralizing what the causes are and I start looking at like everything, it's like I step back and I'll tell myself, okay, am I letting this part of me affect my entire world? And maybe it just works for me, but I find myself doing that. Like I'll step back and like, okay, I think that this is just it is back again. But once I recognize that, then it's like having, it's like I put my gloves on, I deal with this hot issue until it's not hot, and then I realize it's okay. Uh, but this idea, this false idea that you'll have depression or you'll have, this, relive a traumatic event. And, if I take this pill or if I do this therapy or I go for this run, then it's not going to be an issue anymore. And then suddenly, boom, you're blindsided. You walk down the street and it hits you again. And you haven't coped. You haven't mentally prepared yourself for it to come back,
Right.
hit with another wave, a rogue wave you didn't know was coming. And for me, that's helped me keep it, kind of in perspective. And then I can, what I'll do, my own therapy is I'll start throwing myself into projects, and you can usually tell when I'm going through a cycle because I'll be posting grand ideas at 2 a.m. of this great thing I'm going to accomplish, and then people are like, hey, what was that? Don't worry about that. That was me venting to the world.
Yeah.
But having that, but now, so now you've got a child, beautiful girl, and your career, you're going in a different direction with your career. To that purpose-driven career, do you find, does that give you solace having those directions?
Yes. I mean, for me, being task oriented, mission driven, fun military buzzword insert here. METI, yeah. But for you drew some great points, and that's true. Like the difference is now I'm not soaking myself in the pain, or I'm identifying what's making me anxious and what's going on, and that anniversaries are coming up, and that I have to be vigilant to know that I might be a mess one day, but it doesn't need to be the permanent thing that causes me to be there for the rest of the year.
Right.
Whereas before, that might have been the thing that happened. That might have been the thing that triggered me, and made me go on a binge or go basically batshit, and just be miserable and make everyone around me miserable too. So yeah, like working some of those things out and identifying it and getting good sleep and taking care of myself, I find those are big things. But to answer your new question or your second question, I got to realize that it's always there. It's in the background, and it can rear its head. But for me, we talked about this briefly when we were talking about, when did I first realize I had problems, or that I was experiencing things, and wasn't coping with them well. I didn't know how much the uniform meant to me. I think, and a lot of combat veterans, can also relate is that I liken it to it's fused to your soul at some point,
Mm-hmm.
And you hear guys describe it like, I'm always going to be in that place at some point in my life. And I think it's true. I think my self-worth was tied into the uniform a little bit. The way I looked at the world and the way I solved problems is always going to be there through training, through the people that I worked with, and the guys that I served with are a big part of who the hell made me into what I was. I mean, I had I think a lot of officers will talk about this experience, but I was a kid. I was a 24-year-old punk who got taught how to be a man by his NCOs and his soldiers. But, my finishing school was combat, was a year in one of the worst places that I think I could ever describe to anyone. And that was Baghdad, Sadr City, on one of the worst days that, that place ever had. And then, as a senior, well, we won't call it senior, but as a JO captain with a little bit more seasoning, we go and we're training and have a green on blue. Mm-hmm. And, those things don't leave you ever. How I deal with them today is a measure of the growth that I and the growing pains that I went through. But I would attribute it to three things. Why I'm better at dealing with this is I'm able to self-recognize it. You talked about it, but for me, it's a practice of being mindful. You want to call it meditation, you want to call it, yoga, you want to call it whatever you want to call it. It's fine. But if it works for you, you got to use it. And it's a tactic to identify something ain't right here, or something ain't right down here. And I'm in that place. And then bringing it back, calming yourself down, counting to 10, whatever you want to do. And then moving forward going, okay, today might be interesting. And then if it gets too much, to pick up the phone, call somebody, or like you said, get into a hobby, get into a thing. For me, it's I like to get out and hike, just me and the dog, and it doesn't matter if I see anybody. I just get to a point where I'm up looking over a valley, and I just say to myself, what is it today? What's going on? And just kind of have that moment of peace and looking at something pleasant. And those are things that I do, but it doesn't work for everybody. You got to figure it out. The worst thing I would say when you're in your shit is that you don't treat it important, and you're laissez-faire about it, or you're it's nothing, it'll go away, because it ain't gonna go away. It's gonna come back. In my case, it came back worse, and it took more work to do it, to get right again. So that's my experience with it. But the other big thing for me was, and this is like going into that career thing that we were talking about, is I said I was cavalier about it. I maybe had a little hubris, this Army officer who could do anything, and I'm going to wow these corporate civilian folks. What I would have done a little bit better is taken some time to really consider what I wanted. Very much it was my journey, but it didn't have to be as rough as it was. So So I think what I'm trying to get at is the fact that you need to truly sit down with yourself, write down some big lofty goals. If all you had all the resources, like you were in the military, you had all the resources at your fingertips and all the manpower that you ever needed, what the hell do you want to do with yourself? And how do you create that reality for yourself? Write it down and make it tangible. Put it on your mirror. Put it on your refrigerator. I can't own that. That's my brother's, who's a big success guru. But when that thing is a tangible goal, you're working towards it every day. And if it's something you're like, I want to start my own bakery and I don't even know the first thing about business, fine. Now you have a mission and you have something to go towards. And what are your implied tasks that are going to get you to that last and final goal? And for me, I didn't do it the right way, but for me, it was, I want to be of service again.
Okay.
To my fellow human being. And I don't want it to be, I'm being of service at the, and we talked about this a little bit. And I am by no means a snake eater, jumping out of planes and stacking bodies, as these veteran websites say.
Yeah, right. Coffee and hate.
But, I had enough combat to know that I didn't like it. I didn't like the way I felt afterwards. And I didn't like the way I felt 2 years when I thought about it again. So, I said, I'm going to live a nonviolent life, and I'm going to, develop a thing where I can be of service at somebody's worst moment. And, for me, that was going into nursing because, this is a really extremely difficult, stressful job where you wade into the shit, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And you pull somebody out of their worst moment by just being kind and being nice and being an expert at your tasks and your drills. Mm-hmm. and all the other things that come with it. But, somebody's got to be seeing a theme here. It's like, when I wore the uniform, I knew that people's lives were depending on it. And I wanted to be an expert as best I could at my goals and my warrior tasks and drills, and be the subject matter expert that I needed to be successful. And then, I find that in certain places in nursing, and I find, and if I'm being really honest, the adrenaline that I missed because, selling a doctor on, a surgical piece of surgical equipment and making, thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, it was good, but it didn't do it.
Right.
And this, possibly helping somebody by, getting them off a ventilator and getting them to walk out of the hospital, that does it for me. And that's me,
Sounds
that's
like
me. But I think if the flip side is true and you are passionate about, and I'm just thinking about, because I just saw the Iraq bakery commercial, Brian Arakpo and that other guy from the Tennessee Titans own their own bakery. If putting little pink sprinkles on cupcakes makes you freaking, want to jump out of bed in the morning, then you should go do that. Doesn't matter what your veteran buddies say.
Be true to what you want to do. I think that's part of it is don't live a role, No. A lot of guys try and live that role. And it's a hard corner to turn. But if you can find that thing, and if you can make enough, look, I had this conversation recently about what's wealth, right? Wealth is having the money and time to do things you want to do when you're not working. And for everybody, that's going to be a relative term. If your idea of a good time is yachting, then you're going to have to work a lot harder to get there. My hobbies aren't expensive, so what I need to do to be wealthy, and affords me the latitude of finding a job I like to do. In this case, like I know you took a pay cut when you went from your old job to your current job. We talked about that a little bit before,
Yeah.
but you're happier. You seem like you're more true to who you are. Like the difference between the Tarpey I saw out in Arizona I visited and the person I talk to now I feel like I'm talking to the true you. And that's hard to get there, man. It's hard to get there because it's raw. It's a raw state of being, but and there are going to people who are going to tell you that you're on the wrong path, but if you're on the right path or not. And the fact that you get that fulfillment from helping people, you found a way to scratch that itch that so many veterans have. A lot of us are into service. You found it. And that's not it. Nursing's a hard job, man. It's an unsung job. So I'm proud of you that you were able to come to terms and find what you need to do, and it seems to be what you need to do for you and your family.
Yeah.
I ramble.
No, not at all. I mean, we talked about that earlier. Like I didn't, and I don't know if this is everybody's experience, but I remember getting off the bus and seeing my girlfriend at the time and my buddy's wife, and after the last formation, and you get that release, and then all of a sudden you're back in the world, and you are going out to dinner, and my family came in, and I'm talking 2005. This is probably, when did I get back? April, in Austin, Texas, and all of a sudden, all the things that you never knew have come back. And just how grateful you should be to be a part of this country, and the wealth that we have, and the ability to have all of that going on, and not be looking over your shoulder and stuff like that. And I just remember my cop brother sitting next to me, and I'm literally, and I think we talked about this before, I'm literally like, I got my knife and my fork, and we're waiting for like our appetizer to come out at the steakhouse, and I'm literally white knuckling it. And he's like, bro, what is going on? Relax. And at the time I smoked, and I was like, all right, I just went outside and I smoked a cigarette, and I came back in, and I didn't feel normal like myself for at least a year after I got home. And then then I got orders to go back, and it was like, you know, okay, mission set, get your head going and all this stuff. But I have to say, I knew what was coming. I knew what it all was about, and I think the second one was harder mentally to get the energy going again. And so when I got out, and I got real passionate about what I was doing, it was a kick in the nuggets to really feel like, oh God, this first one might not be the what I want to do. And it took me 5 years to realize that I needed to find something that I was truly passionate about again, and want to be a part of. Damn money or anything else. I needed to be a part of and to me it was, I don't know, I got philosophical about it, but it was about being of service to my fellow human being. And that was where I was at. Excuse me. That's another veteran calling me, weirdly enough. But I guess where I'm going with that is the fact that to truly know and understand what the hell you want to be about, it takes a little time and I'm talking post uniform, and it doesn't matter. I don't care if you retired, you were 3 year, and first contract and out. You've got to sit down with your loved ones and yourself and really find out what you want to be, because you have all the intangible tools. You just got to be aiming them at the right situation for you. And I think that's huge to find your purpose. So, I hear a lot of stories. The nonprofit thing is very big, and, vets starting their own nonprofits and things like that. I think that's amazing, because who else could be philanthropy better than, more philanthropic better than a veteran? Who wants to take care of their fellow veteran better than another veteran? And who can be, the strength that this country is going to need to rely on in the years coming up than us. I mean, we've been at this 15 years, longer, 16, 17. Put it this way. When I first left for Afghanistan, I had a 10-year-old nephew who's now serving, in the Army.
It's tough.
There's enough of us eventually that if we can pull ourselves up and then reach to the right and left. And it's one thing I was hoping to accomplish with this and it's something that I very, very truly think that this is part of. If you're a vet and you're doing well and you've got things going, or even if you don't, you're just moving in the right freaking direction. You need to look to the right and to the left and offer the hand to the guy that's suffering, because you've been there and you know what it's like to be wrapped in bubble wrap. And for me, it was, living in fog. Everything was blunted. And, I hope that one day, there'll be a guy I come across who's struggling the way I was, and is able to reach out. I'm able to reach out and help them in some way. But that's the important thing, I think, finding what you're passionate about and then being able to be of service to your fellow veteran, to be, or for God's sake, the guy that, ETSs, and is in transition, because it's not easy on your own, and it's very easy to do all the wrong things and isolate yourself from people that give a shit about you. And then it's like, well, no one cares. And you're just telling yourself that, because people do. They're just going to leave you alone until you tell them that you need help. And that's something that, maybe some of us don't do very well, is ask for help. But, I think for the guys that came home without visible scars, it's up to you to help yourself a little bit. I don't know. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, man. Hey, I appreciate it. So I'm going to throw out there, if there's someone watching this or someone who needs help, if you just want someone to vent to, if there's someone you want to find resources, you can always hit me up, chris@bootsintransition.com. And yeah, you're not alone. I mean, we act like, we act like we're in our own bubble, but we're all brotherhood. So, man, I want to thank you, Brendan, for sharing with us, man.
Yeah.
So if you're ever in that hole, pick up the phone, call me.
Absolutely.
I'm an insomniac. I'll answer. I might be in the other room eating late at night, but thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing with us and your story.
Problem.
All right, so we're gonna sign off live. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Be safe. If you need to call somebody, call somebody.
Good talking to you, Chris.